Welcome back to Proof or Potion, the podcast where we dive into the wild world of health claims, wellness trends, and scientific studies on those trends to separate the real deal from the hype. I'm Dr. Keely.
And I'm Morgan, and together we review the latest research and decide, is it proof backed by science or just a potion that's all smoke and mirrors?
Today we're tackling a topic that's been buzzing in the wellness space, low-level laser therapy, and whether or not it's beneficial for weight loss. The question today is, can zapping your fat with lasers be the future of slimming down, or is it too good to be true? We'll break down a 2019 study from Mayo Clinic researchers and chat about whether it's proof or potion.
But before we jump into that study, of course, let's set the stage. Obesity is a massive global issue, and according to the World Health Organization, over 1 billion adults worldwide are overweight and about 650 million are obese. In the US alone, around 40% of adults fall into the obese category, leading to risks like heart disease, diabetes, joint problems. And traditional weight loss methods like diet, exercise, medications, or surgery work for some, but they're not always accessible for everyone.
Enter low-level laser therapy, also called cold laser therapy. It's a non-invasive treatment that's been around since the 1960s for things like pain relief and wound healing, but in the early 2000s, it started getting traction for fat reduction. The idea? Low-energy lasers, usually in the red or green light spectrum, target fat cells without heat or damage. They create tiny pores in the cell membranes, allowing stored fats like triglycerides to leak out and be processed by the body naturally.
Historically, LLLT got FDA clearance in 2010 for reducing circumference in areas like the waist, hips, and thighs, but not specifically for weight loss. Devices like the Zirconia Zirona use green 532 nanometer lasers, and treatments involve lying under the laser arms for 30 minutes per side. Proponents say it's painless, no downtime, and can motivate people by showing quick, visible results. But critics argue it's pseudoscience with effects possibly due to placebo or temporary water loss.
Exactly, and that's where this study comes in. Published in 2019 in Lasers in Medical Science, it's titled Low-Level Laser Therapy for Weight Reduction, a randomized pilot study. Led by Ivana Kroghan and colleagues at Mayo Clinic, it aimed to find the best frequency of LLLT treatments for weight loss in overweight adults.
So let's summarize the design. This was an open-label, randomized pilot trial, meaning no placebo group, and everyone knew they were getting the real treatment. They recruited 60 overweight adults with BMIs between 25 and 29.9. Participants were mostly female, about 95%, and mostly white, with an average age of 44, and they were motivated to lose weight. Exclusions included recent weight fluctuations, pregnancy, or photosensitivity.
All participants got 12 laser sessions using the Zirconia Zirona 2.0 device targeting the abdomen, but they were randomized into 3 groups. Group A got 3 sessions per week for 4 weeks, Group B 2 per week for 6 weeks, and Group C 1 per week for 12 weeks. Everyone also received a brief behavioral intervention with a Mayo Clinic weight loss manual at the start.
They measured outcomes at baseline and weeks 4, 6, 12, and 26. Key metrics included weight, BMI, waist circumference, body fat, which they measured via bioelectrical impedance, quality of life via ELASA scale, body satisfaction and appreciation questionnaires, and lastly, safety like adverse events.
Now the findings. Overall adherence was high. 98% completed at least 10 sessions. No serious side effects linked to the laser. 1 pregnancy led to early dropout in Group C. About half reported lifestyle changes like better diet or exercise, but it was similar across all 3 groups.
Group B, so this was the twice weekly for 6 weeks, showed the best results. At week 6, they had lost an average of 1 kilogram in weight, 0.4 points in BMI, and 2 inches in waist circumference. Body fat mass dropped by 1.1 kilogram, and percent body fat dropped by 0.9%. These reductions in waist held somewhat at week 26. So not only did they have this reduction, but it also held past the time that they were even receiving laser treatments, right?
Group A, 3 times weekly, had minimal changes. No significant weight loss. Group C, which was once weekly, saw some fat reductions, but it was less consistent. Only 25% in Group B hit 3% weight loss at week 6, dropping to 15% at week 26. When comparing groups, Group B edged out A in weight and fat loss at week 6, but there were no big differences versus Group C.
So the conclusion is that the researchers really suggest that twice weekly LLLT for 6 weeks is the optimal frequency for managing body weight therapy in overweight adults. It balances the intensity and the duration, potentially boosting motivation through visible results, right? So people are seeing changes in their body that gets them excited. All right. So I wanted to take a second here and talk about when I think of treatments, I often think more frequent, better, especially with something like laser therapy. And kind of when we're looking at low-level laser therapy for things such as skin, as in collagen stimulation, or we're looking at it for pain, it's something we want to use every day, right? So why for fat loss or circumference shrinking would we not do it every day or more frequently? Why was the more frequent group less successful in the study?
Yeah, we had the same exact questions when I first read this study, so dug into a little bit.
Yeah.
And it seems like with these lasers, like we said, they make these micropores in the fat. Fat cells just shrink or they expand and shrink. Most people, they just expand. If you're lucky, they can also shrink and some of the fat goes out. But it's very hard to kill a fat cell. There are some therapies, very rare therapies that can do it.
Or suck them out with liposuction.
Exactly. Liposuction, cryo, but usually it's just, in this case, there's micropores and the fats are leaking out. Now, what happens with that fat when it leaves the fat cell? It has to go through your lymphatic system and through your liver, and it has to get metabolized and removed from the body. And if you're doing it too much, there's a couple things that I think could happen. One would be you bog down those systems and they're unable to process all of it. So then they end up reabsorbing the fat and it just goes right back into the fat. The other thing I could see would be maybe a resistance mechanism where if you stimulate something with, say you're taking a hormone and your body has a response to it, but over time you become resistant to that stimulus, or you have to move the site of estrogen application on your body to get the same effect. I think something like that could happen as well, potentially, where if it's getting that signal constantly, it just kind of wears out and thinks maybe we don't need to respond to that signal the same way anymore. The third option would be like there's a time cycle for this process to happen where, you open the pores and they stay open for 2 days or 3 days. And so then if you're trying to stimulate it again at, 3 times a week, those people didn't see as much improvement because they got the same 12 sessions, but it was almost like the too frequent for the mechanism or the process. I could see a few different things going on there.
Yeah. To circle back, they did say this wasn't necessarily about the weight loss. This was about the circumference loss, like you're losing inches. So I think this is a really interesting study. Maybe not the greatest option for like obese individuals or someone who really needs to lose a lot of weight. This isn't your golden ticket. This is not going to do much, right? They're saying really we're at 3% weight loss range. So pretty low, right? But if you were someone who maybe you're in that like those last 10 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Like you've already lost some weight
Stubborn.
and now you're kind of in that stubborn subcutaneous fat and you can use this to really kind of shrink those last inches and really get the kind of sculpting from it, I think is a really great application here.
I think so too, especially if you're maybe one of those high cortisol where you just get the belly fat and reduce that a little bit. And it did seem like it was continuing to reduce over time with the reduction. So it's something that, of course, you would have to keep doing. It's not, a one-time thing, especially if you're not implementing other changes that are going to support that. But I wonder too if they had added some of that diet and lifestyle support, more strict, how the body would respond, right? Because we know that all of these other mechanisms are involved too.
Yeah.
And these were overweight individuals, correct? So we're not looking at somebody who's in a healthy BMI with a few pounds to go. We're looking at somebody who's got a lot of probably inflammation, probably other mechanisms going on that are going to make that weight loss more stubborn. I think even knowing that is a little more promising.
It's kind of interesting. I'm not convinced that this is a great tool for weight loss. I'm really all in on cold laser right now. It's interesting to me that this feels like they didn't really prove that this is great for weight loss.
No, I don't think so either. I wouldn't say weight loss because that was the title, right? It was it was specifically for weight loss. If they would have said for like circumference reduction,
low-level laser therapy for weight reduction. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what they concluded?
They concluded that if you look at what is a healthy weight loss, which is 5 to 10% of your body weight over 6 months, we're not far from what is considered healthy weight loss.
Like 3%.
At 3%.
And that was the best case scenario in group 2.
Exactly.
With the perfectly timed session, 30 minutes front and back, 2 times a week.
Yes. Twice a week, 6 weeks. I'm really not convinced. I'm bummed. I think there's opportunity here for it to be an adjunctive care, for it to be used under different circumstances, but this is not a magic bullet.
I love that they did hone in on those numbers for frequency of treatment and
Yeah.
length of treatment because that is still helpful information
Yes.
for future research.
Now we know what like the ideal treatment duration and length is, right?
Yeah, especially
Right.
this population with this particular device can kind of, and then we can start to explore mechanisms for what
Yeah.
might be going on with fat metabolism. As we know, weight loss is complex and
Super complex.
there's a lot of factors involved and unfortunately not a magic bullet. And kind of want to call potion if the goal is weight reduction.
Totally. I'm actually really excited to call Potion on this. And
So
from my slightly biased perspective of wanting it to be proof, but I just can't get behind that they've actually proved that this does weight loss.
I feel like there's got to be other studies on that device. Yeah.
One small study, 60 participants. Has anyone out there ever done this? I know they're quite expensive.
Have you used any lasers for weight loss or just waist circumference reduction or looking snatched? I think is what the kids say. Such a millennial.
On that note, thank you for
Let us
joining
know.
us today. Like, comment, subscribe. We love hearing from you all and we love being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.